You're doing very well.
You often hear people saying it's impossible to make a perfect game. The word perfection suggests that it's impossible to improve in any way, that the object under scrutiny is in form and function at its zenith, nothing more can be added. To take away is to rob it of its inherent flawlessness.
But what we do think is that there are a handful of games that come very close on one level or another to some definition of perfection, whether it's mechanically speaking or in completely nailing the kind of experience they set out to deliver. I should point out now that this isn't a best games ever video. It's just not. These aren't even our favourite games. These are just some games that are pretty much perfect. And as you can't really tier perfection, these aren't in any particular order.
Well done. Remember, the Aperture Science Bring Your Daughter to Work Day is the perfect time to have her tested.
There aren't many 2D platformers which have reached what Nintendo managed to pull off with Super Mario World. Take the recent 2D Rayman games for example. Origins and Legend and Revelations or whatever. While decent enough in their own way, in Rayman, you just get better at playing Rayman until you do all the stuff, grinding out a result to 100% completion. Learn by rote, perfect the timing, do all the things, never go back. While admittedly short on the spectacle and obscene puppetry of the latter days of Rayman games, the joy of Super Mario World is in becoming so skilled with Mario that you can skip merrily through the impossible and accomplish feats deemingly extraordinary, nay, impossible when you first entered 1-1. While it's initially about finishing stages and finding keys and defeating Bowser, it is later becoming so much more. The Mario of Super Mario World is less a vehicle for your journey from A to B, rather than a tool, an instrument, that can be played in so many ways as to demonstrate your burgeoning skill. It's a singular, most solid piece of 2D platforming design ever made. A small skill set, a modest suite of power-ups, and then stages which set out to milk your abilities with these to the fullest. With their firm and deliberate design, and enemy types and placements, these stages are mini sandboxes in terms of what you can do, teaching you to experiment, to practice, not just to beat the stage, but to become better, and to bend the code and levels designed to your will. You are the one. The fact that players are still discovering things in Super Mario World is testament to its richness. I don't foresee Rayman being played with such obsession in 20 years' time. Never trust a man with floating appendages, as my nan used to say.
Yes, this absolutely is on the list instead of its underachieving spawn, the Phantom Pain. Ground Zeroes is a super short game that takes place in a pretty small map. But anyone telling you the game is too short, haha, I can finish it in an hour, isn't truly understanding the perfection of the game. It's short enough to allow variety in the different ways you can complete your objectives, and the side missions it can offer. The map is small enough to be packed with just enough density and design. Ground Zeroes does exactly what it needed to do to showcase a perfected Metal Gear Solid game. It's too bad that tweaking that formula to fit a larger scope with the Phantom Pain blemished that purity.
There are some games which have a certain purity to them. I don't mean like Pong, where you just have something simple and elegant in design. What I mean is that the central concept is so simple that regardless of the complexity of the system around it, the core remains vital. An engine room that forever stimulates the desire to play. There are a few games that can lay claim to being so powerful, so perfect in this regard. The irony is that Tetris is, fundamentally, about mapping your imperfections. Tetris is unique like that. Unlike most games, it's not about your successes. Sure, you can have your scores and your best achieved number of lines, but moment-to-moment in play, Tetris isn't about that. It's about where you're fucking up. You're so desperate to create neatness and order that your game begins to feel unhinged at the small mistakes you make. They glare out at you from the screen as you become driven to correct these mistakes at all cost, to bring order to the board. As you panic, more mistakes are made, and so the pressure mounts. Few things in life bring as much tension relief as emptying a board in Tetris that, mere seconds before, was on the brink of total disaster. The perfection of this simplicity is exactly why so many modern remakes miss the point, and will never be as good as the original releases of Tetris from billions of years ago.
Super Monkey Ball is the perfect example of taking a game that's, well, perfect, and then layering in and adding so much crap that you fundamentally break it forever. The original Super Monkey Ball on GameCube was as pure as the driven snow, but with each iteration Sega added more levels, more furniture, more characters, more story, more minigames, more nonsense. All very well meaning and understandable to a point, but it also saw one of the most incredible skill-based games ever made bent and twisted and forever hobbled by its need to add more stuff. Super Monkey Ball's claim to being a perfect game is helped immeasurably by its control scheme. You just use the analog stick, that's it. This is helped further by the GameCube's rich for your pleasure analog stick housing, so you can always be sure of hitting true north when occasion demands. The goal is simple, collect bananas if you want, but at least get to the goal at the end, and the gradient of difficulty in each stage is impeccable, challenging you all the way and helping you to improve your skills. Finishing all the stages is one thing, but then, slowly but surely, you'll realize that your thumb has got pretty damn good on that analog stick. Inevitably, you go back to the beginning stages to improve further. As you try to perfect your times and scores, you learn new tricks and exploits, and then the penny drops. It's not the monkey's ball you're playing with, but the actual levels themselves.
While on the one hand, I feel Outrun 2 conveys the sheer, unbridled joy of driving far better than games like Forza or Gran Turismo. Like some caricature of the automotive experience, sometimes I feel Outrun 2 isn't really a driving game at all. If you're driving in Outrun 2, you're not really playing it right. Outrun 2 probably has more in common with skiing than anything else, forever sliding against the clock, weaving through slalom of cars, buses and lorries. There are two things that Outrun 2 does which are astonishing. Firstly, you could argue that the original Outrun is perfect, but Outrun 2 takes the same template and refines it. Everything it adds is for the best, and yet it takes nothing away. It doesn't diminish it in any way. It takes perfection and makes it even perfectorer. Yes, I know that's not a real word, but there it is anyway. Secondly, Outrun takes the notion of drift and spins it out into the entire journey. A journey where you can pick and choose your drift experience and sceneries as you go. Proper Outrun 2 play means that you're hardly ever doing anything other than drifting. Ever. Interestingly, the main meat and bones of this game isn't the standard journey play from getting from A to B as fast as possible. It's the challenge the game offers in its secondary modes, most notably Heart Attack mode, that requires you to be very specific in your play. Don't crash, pass the cars, drive through the blue, drift through the gates. The drift mechanics are so perfect that Outrun 2 demands perfection from you too.
Double it!
I once watched a girl a couple of years below me in the school ICT lab clear a Minesweeper board in seconds. Knowing this, and playing Minesweeper myself, because it was pretty much the only game on the school computers outside of Solitaire, I became transfixed by her. I watched her do the same a few more times before she picked up her bag and left. That memory has stuck with me to this day. Even now, I'm still unable to complete boards at that speed. I can only conclude that she must have been staring into the fucking Matrix. Who is she? Where is she now? Like Sudoku or P-Cross, this is less a game about maths and more of a game about logic, with all but the tiniest, smallest hint of chance. Firstly, can you deduce your way to completion and safety? Secondly, can you complete it efficiently? Thirdly, can you complete it both efficiently and quickly? The enemy in this game isn't the mines themselves, but the quality of your own mind. I fucking hate this game, and every first date who demands I complete a game of Minesweeper for them over dinner.
We were thinking about including Pong, but then I remembered Rockstar Games Presents Table Tennis exists. There's a very high probability that you haven't played this game, because who in their right minds wants to play video game table tennis made by the GTA people? But to disregard it is to turn your back on one of, if not the finest, most perfect representations of a sport in video game form. Rockstar Games Presents Table Tennis is impeccably designed. Tight and quick, is such a lean experience and remarkably elegant. But within that ethos of stripped-back simplicity is a control suite that offers unfathomable depths in strategy. Player position, player choice, aim and spin are the tools at your disposal as you wage intensive battles consisting of plays and counterplays, back and forth at a pace so lightning fast that the extended rallies are mentally and physically exhausting. Every point feels like an achievement in itself. A friend of mine once likened it to a game of rock, paper, scissors, only with hundreds of combinations and variations in weapon, requiring you to fire out your choices 3 times a second. To change, remove, or add anything to the game would be to break it. I like the fact it has no career mode, or no create a player to muddy the waters. Just 2 players, smashing a plastic ball at each other, and with it, all the quick thinking strategy that it involves.
Like Super Monkey Ball, Super Mario Kart is a title that's been diluted to the point that it's almost unrecognisable from what it started as originally. Its very ethos has changed from skill-based driving game to chaos-based party game. I'm not suggesting that the later Mario Karts aren't great games that don't demand skill. They certainly are. Incredibly well made, well crafted, and great fun. But are they perfect? Are they perfect like Super Mario Kart is perfect? Super Mario Kart was all about the solid mechanics of driving. Narrow courses, about 4 miles narrower than the freeways of latter-day karts. And with only 4 fundamental variations in kart type, Super Mario Kart's experience can only be described as tight. There was a firmness to the driving model. The drift was hard and deliberate, and made you tighten every muscle in your body from the waist down as you tried to shave the apex of every suitable corner. Sure, GP and battle modes were fun, but it was in the purity of time trial where dedicated players eventually found most of their play, as every millisecond of their best time was a cause for air-punching celebration. In a world where Nintendo now has to balance mechanics and spectacle in equal measure, it's unlikely we'll ever see a Mario Kart quite like it, ever again.